Welcome to Caleb's Basketball Pod. For this episode, there's a lot going on in the NBA to talk about. Tonight, preview a little bit of it. We have Luka's first game against the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, it's in LA, as he won't go back to Dallas until April, and that's when we expect to see Anthony Davis and Luka. We expect, hopefully, to see both parts of that trade, but still a huge game on tonight. I believe the Lakers have been the favorites, but you also have Kyrie Irving and Klay Thompson who can go off at any point. PJ Washington has been playing amazing basketball as of late. And neither team really at this moment have a big, because Dallas is really thin on that center spot with all the injuries. So it'll be interesting to see who takes control. In the last 4 weeks, the last month, the LA Lakers have the number one defense in that span of time. So I just want to first off say it's going to be a good game. Tune in. That's my game. That's my early game of the week. It's going to be some other good games this week. We're going to have Boston, Cleveland on Friday in Boston. So yeah, there's going to be some good games this week. But that's my early game of the week. I have a later game of the week. So check out Dallas and LA tonight. And like I was going to say, I just want to shout out the Lakers and JJ Redick. Everybody's like, oh, we'll see. Early on in the season, him and Darvin Ham had the same record and this and that and all of that. And he's doing the best with what he can. And Darvin Ham did the best with what he could. But Redick kept saying, he's like, give it time. I'm implementing a new system. It's going to take time for these guys to get used to it. Now you see when they're used to it, you're actually talking about the Los Angeles Lakers as a legitimate title contender and a possible favorite out west. They're only 2 games back of the second seed. Like, no one would have predicted that going into the season, especially if you told me they're trading away Anthony Davis. Mind you, you probably have not expected you getting Luka Doncic from that. You probably would have thought, oh, if they trade AD, they're starting a rebuild. No. They traded AD, and now you put 2 of the best basketball players in the world on the same team with LeBron James and Luka Doncic. So I want to shout out them and say I think JJ Redick's doing an amazing job. And from long-time listener of his podcast, it's not like I didn't know this was going to happen because he is so smart about the game, JJ Redick. I listened to him and guys like Tim Legler and some of the like Chris Paul, current player, but some of the former players just break down the game and the current state of basketball. And those would be my favorite episodes just because of the detail he went into on that. So it's not surprising to me, but I just want to give JJ Redick his due because he deserves it. He's coming in and he was going to face a lot of criticism, winning or losing, because they were labeling him as LeBron's guy. And he came in and he's just been what the Lakers needed. No bull crap, not taking anybody's crap, not even taking LeBron's crap, making sure he runs that team and shows that it's his team. I love what JJ Redick's doing. Let's look elsewhere. The Golden State Warriors, we're playing winning basketball right now. They are 5-4-1 or 5-1 since Jimmy Butler's played in the games he's played since the trade. Very good. I do want to say I want to see when they take on more competition. They haven't played better. They've played lower teams, and they do have the second easiest schedule remaining in the Western Conference. So I want to say that plays a lot into them looking really good. But there's a confidence in this Golden State team when they're going out there and they're on the floor. There's a confidence level that we're seeing with them, with Jimmy Butler, that we did not see before Jimmy Butler was there. We maybe saw it in the first 15 games of the season. But then when they start losing bad, and you see all these rotation changes and these lineup changes, and you aren't sure how many minutes you're playing, they lost that swagger, they lost that confidence. With Jimmy Butler, it's back. So no matter if you're beating up on bad teams or not, I want to say just great move by them to acquire Jimmy Butler, and I believe they're going to keep moving forward. And I do think they make the playoffs without the play-in. I think Dallas, by the time AD gets back, they're going to be in crunch time, and they're going to need to work on making the playoffs without play-in. The Clippers may have to work on making the playoffs without the play-in because they're starting to lose a couple straight here and there, and Kawhi's missed a couple in the last 3 games. So, I mean, interesting to see where all these teams land, especially out west. There's not a big difference between, say, 2 until 5 Is not a huge difference there. So it's interesting to see, and there's a lot going on. Oklahoma played the Minnesota Timberwolves last night, and Oklahoma had a 16-point lead with like about 4 minutes remaining in the game, and ended up losing the lead, not scoring in the final 3:49 and losing the game to the Timberwolves. So I don't think that's saying anything bad about Oklahoma, but I do think Minnesota feels they have Oklahoma's number. We've seen them beat them 2 of the last 3 meetings, and even the game they did win in Minnesota recently, we saw how close that was and how close Minnesota had it at the end. And OKC did what the number 1 team in the Western Conference should do. They pulled away and won it at the end. But I just want to say I feel like Minnesota, they have to feel like they have Oklahoma's number. And that's a good thing for them, because if Minnesota gets around that 4 or 5 range, they could do what Dallas did, and they could send the number 1 team in Oklahoma home in the playoffs in the second round. Because you can't count out that Minnesota team. Anthony Edwards, and I love Shea. I think Shea's an amazing player, but Anthony Edwards, he's a stud. He's a star, and he just shows it night in and night out. Now this season, while I was talking about being more consistent, he's been more consistent, but he's also doing more than scoring. I kept saying even like last season, and in the playoffs, like I don't want to see 10 points from Anthony Edwards, and then he explodes for his 20-point game, and then he drops to 10 or under 10 or this or that. I want to see the 20 range, be around that 20 area, and I want to see him make more of an impact besides scoring. Now you're seeing him get like 17 points, like 12 rebounds, 8 assists, something like that. You're seeing him make an impact. Last night it was blocking Shea's game-winning shot at the buzzer to send it to overtime. We're seeing more of an impact from Anthony Edwards on every end, on every part of the game, but scoring too. And then I want to go out and score. I don't want to pass every time if I get double teamed. Now he's taking the double team. He's taking the double team and he's making passes off of it. The maturity level has gone up of Anthony Edwards. And I just want to say, I think he's just getting better and better as it goes. And we're seeing more from him. And then from the flip side, when you look at Shea, has no doubt Shea's a star. And a very good chance Shea's MVP this year. And if he is, I get it. He is so good. But you could also say Jokic could be the MVP. It's tough. Feels like it's a 2-man race and everyone else is just kind of there. But it's just those 2. And I think it's going to depend on, does Denver, with the struggles at the start of the year and this historic one that Jokic is on, do they get that number 2 seed in the West? And if they do get the number 2 seed, I think you're giving a lot of credit to Jokic because of a bad start and because that he's having better numbers than he did in his MVP year. But then if you look at it this way, you can just say, well, Shea's been Shea all year. And not to say Jokic has it, but Shea's been number 1 in the West pretty much all year. So there's a flip side, and I think you could give it either one of them. Real quick before we wrap, I also want to shout out the 2 best win streaks in the NBA currently going. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers at 7 straight, and surprisingly, we have the Detroit Pistons at 7 straight. Detroit, I've spoken on them a lot in recent episodes, but just one more time. If you're not watching Detroit basketball, you need to go out and watch Detroit basketball, because this is not the Detroit Pistons that we saw last year or the years before. Last few years where people made fun of these guys. These guys go out, they hustle, they have an identity on the defensive end, and they are making winning plays. Amazing job that JB Bickerstaff has done in Detroit. Shout him out, just like JJ Redick. Great new hire for the Pistons, the white guy for the job, and we're seeing the best of Cade Cunningham. 38 points the other night against Atlanta. He's turning into a budding star too himself. So I just want to shout out Detroit real quick. And the last thing before we finish this episode, Brooklyn Nets are 7-3 in their last 10 games. Top 10 defense in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And they're right there. They're 11th. They're close to Chicago. Chicago is vice versa of Brooklyn right now. 3-7 in the last 10. I think we're going to see Brooklyn pass Chicago. And I believe, I'm going to predict this now, Brooklyn will be a 9 or 10. Well, not 9. I don't think they can catch really Atlanta or Miami. But I'm going to say they'll be the 10th. They'll beat out Chicago and Philadelphia. Philadelphia fans have just torn bad. Even Chicago beat them really bad, and Chicago's just not a good basketball team. Fans have really gone sour for the Philadelphia 76ers. And now they're contemplating the future of Joel Embiid. We'll talk about that in a second. But finishing up, Brooklyn Nets are playing winning basketball. Their defense has been amazing. Everyone's touching the ball, and they're just making a name for themselves. They're not that team that you can go into and beat up on like they were early on in the season. They're playing good basketball. So just really good turnaround for them. And then now to finish up, Joel Embiid's contemplating another meniscus surgery, which he had last season, or he's contemplating a surgery where they would break his hip and realign everything in it, like his leg and in that area. But like, it's just not only sad for Philly, but just sad for Embiid. This guy was a superstar, and he's still going to be when he returns, I believe. But like, just to see like the fall that he's had from being like a number one guy, a MVP a couple seasons ago, to now like the contemplating a surgery where you break his hip to realign his leg. It's sad, and I really hope the best. But at this point, Philly's losing. Shut it down. Let the guy, because he is your superstar, just shut it down and let them get surgery and come back stronger next season. There's no point like holding you out. Philly's not winning anything, and you're really not getting much from Paul George. Even the last few games Maxi's played, he's not giving you much at this point. You were down near 50 at one point to Chicago. It's just time to call it a night, Philly. You won your Super Bowl in the NFL, so just call your night, rebuild, get a top draft pick, keep your draft pick, and see if you can win it back with these guys one more year before you decide blow you up. And if it still don't work with these three, just blow you up. But I want to thank you for joining this episode. Come back on, hoping to get an episode out Wednesday, so come back on Wednesday.